I don't think enough people gave credit to Senator Pat Murray's brilliant takedown of Pete Hegseth's request for more money that he does not need, that he not substantiated. That's anyway. Let's watch it with me, and I'm going to give you some thoughts, and I'm going to call out some of the things that we saw together that I need you to take note of. So let's watch that first, and let's talk on the other side. Let's go.
Thank you, Chair Collins. Secretary Hegseth, your department received $150 billion last year in the Republicans' Big Beautiful Bill. It also received a record $839 billion for fiscal year 2026, more money than you asked for last year. Combined, that is a $1 trillion budget for the year, and as I already mentioned, your department has yet to spend half of the reconciliation funds. And despite that, you are here today asking for tens of billions of dollars more for things that you've already asked for in your FY27 request or that have nothing to do with Iran. This administration has tried to sell this as an emergency request, but it may be better understood as an attempt to skirt the normal appropriations process. Here are just a few of the things requested in this Iran supplemental. $800 million for the National Guard to patrol D.C. even longer, over $1 billion for the Army to patrol the southern border, which is DHS's job, $900 million to support the administration's illegal boat strikes in the Caribbean, over $18 billion for munitions, which you've already requested in your FY27 budget request, and $1.7 billion to pay for your decision to recruit more people than the services need, which was not contemplated by the FY26 funding bill Congress recently passed. Now, you've already submitted a reprogramming request on this that our subcommittee is considering now, which really underscores the point I made in my opening remarks that the problem's not a lack of money, but poor planning. So I'll be blunt. The truth is your request does not make a lot of sense. So let me ask you a simple question. Why exactly are billions of dollars more for the National Guard and this administration's illegal strikes in the Caribbean urgently needed for the Iran war?
Well, Senator, I wouldn't, of course, agree with your characterization, but why this kind of spending is needed is because of the gross negligence and neglect of the Biden administration inside our department. Ran it like a bureaucracy, abandoned our strength posture around the world, so we're having to reestablish deterrence. You mentioned the end strength numbers, and I will acknowledge that we are ahead of schedule on end strength in recruiting. 8,000 in the Navy, 6,000 in the Army, 4,000 in the Air Force. Because under President Trump, there's been record and historic over 30-year recruiting records inside our department since he won the election because the American people didn't want to sign up for what Joe Biden was providing our military. And they want to sign up for what President Trump is doing in his leadership. And so those are good problems to have that we need to fund and a reflection of momentum. And this budget will allow us to continue the kind of momentum that gets us ahead.
My point is that a lot of this request does not feel like an emergency. And let me move on. Secretary Hegseth, like most Americans, I've had a lot of trouble following this administration's contradictory statements about the war. On April 8th, you said, and I quote, "Their missile program is functionally destroyed, launchers, production facilities, and existing stockpiles depleted and decimated and almost completely ineffective." Mr. Secretary, Iran has been firing at U.S. military bases in the region and its ships for the last week. How is it possible, if their capabilities were, quote, functionally destroyed 3 months earlier, as she claimed, for them to be doing this now?
Well, Senator, Iran is at the weakest point militarily it has ever been in the past decade, certainly maybe in 47 years, as they've gathered effectively a terror army. And that terror army was built to try to create conventional capabilities to defend against a pursuit of nuclear weapons, which meant thousands of ballistic missiles, many of which we have destroyed, others of which they have put inside facilities and hidden in underground facilities. That's what terror regimes would do. So I acknowledge they still have capabilities, no doubt. But the amount of damage that we've done to them over the course of these series of operations has put them in the worst place they've ever been.
Okay, well, let me move on. On May 5th, you claimed that Iran doesn't control the strait, and you said that there was a, quote, powerful red, white, and blue dome over the strait. If that was true, how did Iran shrink ship traffic in the strait to a trickle again last week?
We pushed almost, I believe, between 400 and 500 million barrels of oil under the nose of Iran over the course of Project Freedom, which went underground, which I acknowledged after we did so covertly because it was more effective to do so quietly than to do so publicly. So we've been in control of moving traffic through there for quite some time. Will they retain the ability to recklessly shoot at commercial shipping? And that's what happened. We had a ceasefire, and then they shot at commercial shipping
Well, you
recklessly
also
as a state.
said at
That's
that
what changed it.
same press conference, and I'm going to quote you, you urged Iran to, quote, let innocent ships pass freely. These international waters belong to all nations, not to Iran to tax, toll, or control. Last week, President Trump said the U.S. would charge a 20% toll to each ship to pass through the state. So based on your opposition to tolls, did you talk to the president out of that idea, or did someone else?
Iran's not charging tolls, and they're shooting at ships right now.
But Trump said that he wanted to charge a 20% toll.
We have a blockade right now of all Iranian ships and Iranian ports, and it's effective.
My time is out.
Oh, let's start backwards. Donald Trump called him flat-footed. If you watch me, I'm JJ Legal. One of the things I do is I monitor the lawsuits filed against the Trump administration and those the Trump administration filed against others to give you a sense of calm that the courts are working. The other thing I do also on my channels is look at these congressional hearings so you know that people in the Congress are working. A lot of people say, what's Democrats doing? What are the congressional people doing? Doing oversight hearings, doing requests for appropriations for more money like what's going on here. They are holding their feet to the fire and have them answer for their bullshit decisions. And this is an example of it. It was brilliant. And other thing I say all the time is they do not coordinate. They're doing whatever the hell they want. The DOJ is arguing one thing, and they're saying stuff in front of the media and press. They're signaling things to the MAGA to show them they're tough, they're strong. And as they're making these statements in the press and public and for Fox or at hearings, the people who are suing them in courts are like, oh, really? They're snapping these statements and they're giving to the courts, and the judges are actually citing what they're saying in the hearings back at them before they issue decisions. So it is smart for people like Senator Murray to force them to make these statements, and their conflict. Pete Hegseth was saying in this press statement that it's unfair for the Iran to charge a toll for people to cross the strait. And then you have Donald Trump saying, yeah, we should be charging money too, because he doesn't understand. He's all over the damn place. He's inconsistent. The stable genius is so unstable. That's why Pete Hegseth was like, in this speech. All right. Then another thing I want you to note is that she's calling him out on the inconsistency of emergency. A lot of times, a lot of things this administration has done from January 2025 is claim emergency power, and Donald Trump did it the first time, in a way of getting around the traditional appropriations process, which is happening here, get around with having to give people due process rights, when they did the Alien Enemies Act, emergency laws to try to get people out the country without giving them the rights to defend themselves. Every single thing, sending people at the border was an emergency his first term. Sending troops into the cities is because of an emergency, because traditionally he can't do none of those things unless they claim an emergency. So here she's saying every single thing you're asking for is not an emergency. Not only she's saying sending more DC troops, there's no reason for the National Guard to be patrolling DC troops. That's costing all the money for nothing. Sending people to the border is crossings have been going down month over month since Biden's term through now. There's no reason to send troops at the border when the border agents are bored, because there's not that much happening at the border. No matter what Donald Trump tells you, no matter what MAGA tells you, there's nothing going on at the border. More on that later. Then she says, and he asked him money to recruit, and recruit for what? In his response, he said, yeah, we're well ahead of traffic for recruiting because people didn't want to work for Joe Biden. Fucking lie. Because if you look at the numbers, the recruiting numbers have been going up from Joe Biden's era. They're just on an upward trajectory. So they're just catching an upward trend and taking credit for it. That's what they do all the time. Whether it's a downward trend that's good, that's already been going down, they take credit for that. Whether it's upward trend, it's not anything that Donald Trump is doing. People don't want to die for Donald Trump. Go into a war. It doesn't even make any sense. Then she says, if you want to go bomb people, to kill more people off the boats, it's not even necessarily illegal. Like you want more of our tax dollars to go to this illegal killing of people and boats and ammunition that got destroyed because y'all are fighting a Cold War era war to guerrilla fighting Iran, which he acknowledges. He said, yeah, they got these mines, they do all this stuff. That's because they're fighting a different war that you're not prepared for. And you had them destroy all our tanks, sink our tankers, knock down our air fighter jets. And it's expensive, and they're doing this with drones, with tiny little cheap drones. And that's why you need more money for ammunition. And I think at the end of the day, I think all of this money they're getting for, they're saying it's for, they're saying it is for the more recruits. They're saying it's for sending troops by the border. They're saying it's to give more money to the National Guards. They're saying it's for the boat strikes. And at the end of the day, I really do think this is to replenish the warfighter jets, the ships that have been tanked and blown up, and all of the casualties of equipment caused by the guerrilla warfare that Iran is fighting, that Pete Hegseth's unqualified, inept Fox News primping. It looks like steroids taken, allegedly, apparently to me, like unqualified, unfit, white nationalist tattoo wearing self is doing to ruin morale, destroying leader of the Department of Defense, not war, or for the Department of Warmongering, if you ask me. So it's to replenish his own ineptitude. That is what that money is for. And Pat Murray called it out. And then again, not just the inconsistency of the flip flopping, the fact that there's really not an emergency. And the big thing is that she's saying that I love the fact that she says this unlawful, illegal war, this tariff causing. You're like every single thing, like she's calmly, she just, I'm going to characterize every single thing and what it really is, an unforced error. And then finally, he owns some mistakes. He says that two things he conflicts himself. He said, "Oh, we destroyed their tankers. They're like essentially rendered ineffective. We destroyed the military." She's like, "Okay, if you destroyed the military, how come they're still doing stuff over there? Like how?" He had to be like, "Well, we destroyed the military, but we didn't destroy their guerrilla warfare." That's essentially what he says. And then he said something about we rendered their strait closed. We declosed. We made them like reopen the strait. We did that. And then she said, "Okay, you made them reopen the strait. How come the strait is now closed?" He's like, "Well, it is closed, but we still got some troops under there. We still got some tanks under a covert system. Should you be announcing the fact that you use a covert methods to bypass? You don't think anyone from Iran's not watching this and taking notes? They may have figured it out by now that the United States were able to get some ships doing covert means. But if they didn't know, now they know, Mr. Signal Gate. But again, it didn't answer the question that you contradicted yourself by saying we opened the strait. She said they closed it. Like, yeah, they closed it, but we still snuck in people. That's essentially what you sound like. When you say we destroyed the military, you destroyed the military, but they're still operating. Yeah, we destroyed the military, but didn't destroy the guerrilla fighting war parts of their military. That's still going on. I said the military, the big Navy military, not the guerrilla details. Murray. Yeah, so that was good. So I see that you like this sort of takedowns, and I'll promise to deliver some more. I have lots of them. I think this is great for people to see that the people ask for accountability. Accountability is going to come. It is going to come. And I always use this example that a lot of us in this space are trying to uplift and edify and keep people like going, keep pushing, is remind you all that in 1973 was the Watergate break-in. Richard Nixon didn't resign until 3 years later in 1976. Although you see the Department of Justice doing bullshit indictments like James Comey for resharing a picture of seashells arranged on a beach. Bullshit, because even Todd Blanche doing an interview on Sunday News and whatever news said that all of those 8647 t-shirts out there, they're not going to be indicted. Jim Comey's team recently said Matt Gaetz had 86 of someone before, and this is selective prosecution, and there's no proof. Just dismiss this case. Also, we want to see what the hell they showed the grand jury to show that to get this indictment. Because in order to get indicted in a felony, it has to show like $1,000 in property damage. What the hell did they tell those grand jurors? We need to see that because we've seen grand jury misconduct up and down this Department of Justice. But I digress. So you have an organization that is doing a whole bunch of hijinks sort of situations going on, and people aren't liking it. And so that's why a lot of these cases fall apart because they're not based on any data, any facts, any legal justifications. any research, any strategy. That's not based on precedent. It's not based on case law. It's not based on administrative law. There's no basis whatever to justify a lot of things they're doing. And that is uncommon. The Department of Justice traditionally, before they seek an indictment, they're only going to seek an indictment and make charges based on something they believe they can secure. This version, Department of Justice, does not do anything. They seek indictments because Donald Trump wants them to. Whether or not they're going to fail or not, he doesn't care. He's more interested about embarrassing people and about the headlines. That's why you follow me, because I take you beyond the headlines to make you realize that we do win. And even when it comes to the request for voter rolls data, which they've been doing recently, and they asked for 30, and we're up to 17 states that have won their defense of Donald Trump asking for the voter rolls, and they've won it where at least half of the judges are Trump appointed or Republican appointed judges, which tells you this is not a partisan issue. Even in those cases, they're losing because they are just putting all bullshit down. They don't care that they're losing. They're going to keep appealing and hope the Supreme Court save them. But it's a loser, and they lose a lot because they're not following the law. They're not following the rules. They just doing whatever the hell they want up until this 86-47. And so it's all just a bunch of nonsense, every single thing. Anyway, I digress. That's the end of this video. But I see that you like it. I keep you up to date. And so I want you to know that this is part of the strategy, forcing these statements on the records, because these statements they make on our oath, like I said before, can be used in the courts because the justice look at the decisions, look at the court transcripts, and they cite them. The plaintiffs or the defendants in these cases also watch the congressional hearings, and they send it to the judges, and the judges cite it in their decisions. And then future investigations, criminal referrals, civil referrals, class action lawsuits, oversight hearings, investigations, all are going to be looking at the statements that they say on the record under oath and using as part of their record. So that's the benefit of watching these. So I have a lot of them up my sleeve. I'm going to spend the rest of this day going through. I've had lots of the ones that most recently, you're going to see Pete Hegseth, you're going to see Russell Vought, you're going to see all the cabinet members getting caught saying a bunch of nonsense and being called out for their activities and their actions that are senseless. Make no sense, does not help the people. These people do not realize the government is for the people benefit. They believe the government is only for the benefit of Donald Trump, rewarding his rich, wealthy friends, businesses, Donald Trump himself, and his allies. That's it. That's not the government for. This is not this man's government. The government is for the people. It's not supposed to be just punishing blue states, because essentially you're supposed to be the president of the country, but you're purposely going out of your way to punish people in states that did not vote for you. And that's not how it works. So imagine if a Democrat came into office like a Gavin Newsom or John Ossoff or Kamala Harris or somebody else who's stronger. I don't know who else could be out there. A Pete Buttigieg, if he comes into office and says, I'm going to make you pay for every single thing y'all done. Do the same thing, y'all not gonna like it. You're not gonna like it. So as you're cheering this on and you're saying this is good, this is allowing Donald Trump to have this retribution to it. Like, imagine if the Democrats did the same, how terrible your life would be if you were in a red state and they said we're gonna punch you. We're gonna take away all your guns, we're gonna shut down all your churches, we're going to shut down your way of life, we're gonna shut down all of the barbecue joints, all the Waffle Houses, all of the farms, because any single thing that represents rural economy and rural people, like, we're going to attack them, attack those states, attack those people, make their lives a living hell. That's what Donald Trump's doing to the Democrats. That's not how government should work. It should not be this way. They shouldn't have to do that. But elect a mob boss, criminal, who's cheated charities, bankrupt so many different companies, lied on his taxes, a draft dodger, a tax dodger, who cheated on multiple wives, is the president of the United States. And that's why we have this tit for tat transactional presidency. But I digress. Anyway, if you like some more, stay tuned for here. I got more for you. And I'm going to point a list here, if you watch this on YouTube, to a playlist of other brilliant takedowns. So you like that takedown? I got more for you. Already produced some more. I got more coming. So stay tuned and subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to this. Follow me wherever you're watching this at. Share so other people know. Other people want a little bit of this. Want to see the fight. I got you. Each one teach one. Share this video so more people know. Keep watching if you're looking at this on YouTube.